right, I guess we're live. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome in everybody to the first ever live stream here on Wildcat Cave. Um, it's been a rough week to be a UK fan. There's only one real way to put that. We'll go over the game a little bit, talk about some maybe if we can find any good things, the bad things, of course. We'll have to go over all of that. I'm sure we'll see a Tennessee fan or two on here that we unfortunately have to deal with. But we'll just go ahead and jump right into it here. Um, Overall, it was a pretty poor game. Will Levis went, let's see, 16 for 27 for 98 yards, no touchdowns, three interceptions. Um, Obviously, didn't play his best game. Only five passes, I think, were completed above the line of scrimmage or past the line of scrimmage. Um, a lot of that I attribute to play calling, obviously, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Will Levis, he had a bad game, probably his worst game since he's been at UK. I don't think that hurts his draft stock really. I still think he's a top three quarterback taken this year. But overall, pretty poor game out of him and the offense as a whole. Everything seemed kind of go downhill after that first drive. We went down, matched them minus the extra point mishaps that we've had all year. Would have been 7-7 if we made that. And then after that, it was all systems failure on the offense. They couldn't move the ball. They couldn't get stops at the line of scrimmage. Tennessee was on them as soon as the ball was snapped. Um, Hendon Hooker on the other side went 19 of 25 for 245 and three touchdowns. The dude's good. I've gotten a lot of stuff from Tennessee fans this week, just kind of talking about how Hendon Hooker is the best thing since sliced bread, and how Will Levis isn't any good, and just kind of nonsense stuff like that. Hendon Hooker is good, but the fact of it is that he's not an NFL quarterback. He's really good in their system and under their coach. He doesn't have an amazingly strong arm. He's not super athletic like Lamar Jackson, but in that system, you got to give it to them. They get wins, obviously, and now they're going to play Georgia for a spot in the SEC championship. And that'll be a huge game. So, congrats to Tennessee. They obviously outplayed us. They were obviously the better team. I do think the game really is a little closer than what we give them credit for. We gave them the ball within 30 yards of the end zone twice, missed some field goals, missed an extra point. Really, in all reality, that game probably should have been a 30-17 game, something like that. So the line was really actually about right on it, I believe. Kentucky just gave them pretty stupid points. As far as rushing goes, if you watch my last video, I was talking about Tennessee's rushing defense. Their rush defense was number one in the SEC at 86 yards a game. Kentucky actually did pretty well rushing the ball until Chris Rodriguez got hurt. Chris ran for 64 yards on 15 carries, which isn't bad against that defense. Like I said, he sat out the second half, so if he plays another half, that's probably two. He doubles that more than likely. But overall, they ran for 130 yards if you don't count the 22 sack yards. I think it's ridiculous that they include those stats in there. And let's see, we got a first comment. What can I say? We need to win the rest of the games outside of Georgia to be third in the East. Yeah, I mean that's a fact. You do. You got to win out. You can afford a loss at Georgia because no one expects you to win that game. We got Mizzou coming up though. Missouri's not a good team. We're definitely better than Missouri, but you've seen them play a lot of good teams close. They had Georgia beat and then blew it. So their defense was one of the worst defenses in the SEC last year, and now they're one of the best. So that's not a game, especially this struggling offense, can look over. They got to be right there and ready to go. I'm not really worried about Vandy. I think we can beat them pretty handily with our eyes closed. But Louisville's a losable game, especially if Chris Rodriguez, DeAndre Square, Jacquez Jones, all those guys are hurt. That's a losable game now. I don't think Wake Forest was a number 10 team, but Louisville took care of them. There was a ranked team that Louisville beat, even though they're a dumpster fire. They have Malik Cunningham and they have playmakers. So yeah, Kentucky definitely needs to finish 8-4. Anything other than that really is going to be a disappointing season. I don't think Kentucky is at the. I don't think they're at the point of a program to where 8-4 is a disappointment. I don't care who you lose to. 8-4 is never going to be a disappointment in Kentucky. 9-3 certainly not, which I think what the kind of the consensus was as far as kind of the expectations going into the year. So 8-4, you dropped the South Carolina game you probably shouldn't have. You dropped the Ole Miss game, which you probably shouldn't have. If you win those two games, we don't even care about this Tennessee loss. But alas, here we are. Anyway, getting back into this, Tennessee didn't do any. I don't think Tennessee did anything spectacular. I mean, we know they're a good offense. We knew that going into the game. I caught a lot of flack on Twitter, of all things, to say that I wasn't really impressed with Hendon Hooker. I mean, he obviously played well, but just watching him play, he didn't have any throws that I thought were NFL caliber. He didn't have any runs I thought were NFL caliber. I think he's just a really good quarterback in that offense. Overall, I thought the officiating was okay. I definitely don't think that's the reason Kentucky lost the game, but I also don't think it was great. They called one terrible pass interference call on Kentucky. It was a third down. They threw it deep. I think it was Carrington Valentine was nowhere near the receiver. And, of course, they threw the flag, put him on the 10-yard line, and then there you go. You're not going to keep that offense out of the end zone when they're that close. They're too good. And up until that point, Kentucky's defense had been playing well as well. But honestly, the defense just wasn't ready for the tempo that Tennessee brought to the game, which is sad considering Brad White had 2 weeks to get these guys ready. He had 2 weeks, and the defense, every time Tennessee went fast, had no answer. We saw it on a fourth down. It was 4th and 2. They spot the ball, and within 3 seconds, the ball snapped again, and our defense was looking around with their hands on their knees, not ready to go. If you're supposed to be the coordinator that you are and Brad White, and you have 2 weeks to prepare for that, tempo should be a pretty easy thing to be prepared for. Now, if they're giving you looks you're not familiar with or they haven't shown before, I can understand being, not ready for those. But tempo and speed, you have to be ready. We've seen enough of Tennessee's offense at this point to know what they are. They like to line the receivers out wide, run you up the gut, and do it fast. Tennessee, they throw the ball, and they have Jalen Hyatt, who we'll also talk about here in a minute. But overall, their offense doesn't do anything crazy. It is a little bit of a gimmick offense, even though Tennessee fans think that word is, one of the 4-letter words you can't say. It definitely is a gimmick offense. A gimmick is anything that's unusual or uncommon, and that's exactly what that offense is. No one else runs an offense like that, and to Josh Heupel's credit, it's worked for him, obviously. They're, 7-8-0, going to play Georgia for the SEC championship. So, again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Tennessee. Like I said, clearly the better team that week. But to say they're not a gimmick offense and to say that Hendon Hooker, in my opinion, is still not better than Will Levis, I stand by that. We can go ahead and get into it a little bit here. I got a ton. I mean, my Twitter mentions for the past couple of days have been insane. I have had over 300 mentions. My analytics on Twitter are up in the thousands of percents higher than what they normally are, because of two things. One, the first tweet I put out was I don't think it's Will Levis's fault they lost the game. And, of course, all Tennessee fans wanted to tell me how awful Will Levis is and how terrible he is and how he did this and how he had 3 picks and how he only threw for 98 yards. And, yes, all of that is true. He did only have 98 yards. He did only throw no interception, or he threw no touchdowns, 3 picks. One of the picks wasn't his fault. But my argument back to them was, and, of course, logic defies them, my argument was he was put in bad spots. The play calling was not there. There was NFL scouts at the game that were quoted saying that the play calling this year is significantly worse than it was last year. And if they had the play calling they had last year, Will Levis would almost be a lock for the number 1 pick. So, Rich Scangarello has some stuff to work on. You can't expect your number 1 potential overall draft pick quarterback to put up those 300-400-yard games like he should be doing in this offense with these playmakers when Tennessee is loading 8 in the box on 1st and 2nd down every series, and then we're running up the gut for 3 plays in a row. Or we're running up the gut 1st and 2nd down, we're facing 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and then we throw a screen that may or may not be completed at that point because Tennessee's defense was so ready for it. Will was definitely shaky. Definitely not the problem, though. I think a lot of it comes back to, and this was again my argument to Tennessee fans, I mean, all week, is Will is, in my opinion, still the most NFL ready quarterback, and it's not close. I don't think Bryce Young is NFL ready. I don't think his body's there. He's maybe a buck 85, and C.J. Stroud is probably second. I just don't think he has the arm Will has. Other than that, they're about even as far as talent and size. But Will, he's got the strongest arm. He's big and he's mobile, which is exactly what you want in the NFL. He has, he's a gunslinger, same as Favre and Roethlisberger and some of those other guys, and they worked out and became great. And I'm not saying that he's, that level or he's going to become that, but he can. That's kind of his ceiling. His comp is Josh Allen. So, when you have that big arm and you're a playmaker and you're competitive, you're going to make mistakes. And that's what I was trying to get through to Tennessee fans is when you're put behind the chains every single play and every single series, you're facing those third and longs. And, it frustrates you as a person. If you've ever played competitive sports and you feel like you're right there and you're just chipping away and it's just never falling your way, you sometimes try a little too hard. And I think that's what Will was doing on those third downs, and even some of the fourth downs, trying to force passes that wasn't there. One of the picks he threw into three people towards Dane. And I mean, you can't expect Dane to make that play, not yet anyway. The ball got tipped up and he was gone. And of course, the other one he threw to Dane on the slant, he got destroyed. Which Will probably shouldn't have thrown it, but I'm not gonna kill him for it. And I don't expect Dane to catch it, but it's just one of those things. The balls bounce up instead of down, and then it's a pick. But overall, yeah, Will's definitely not the problem here. He's the best quarterback we've had at least since probably Andre Wilson. Um, if not, maybe Jared or, definitely Tim Couch. I think he's right there on that level with all those guys. First round pick, top 3 quarterback. So, yeah, definitely not the problem there in Will. I still think he played okay. Obviously, he still threw 60 something percent completions. So, yeah, I'm not mad about that. I think a lot of his play calling. He's a competitor. He's going to try to force a play that might not be there to try to gain momentum and try to get something going on offense. He threw the third down pass to Tavion, the deep pass. I didn't love that he did it, but the play was there. Tavion had it in his hands and he just dropped it. If he catches that, that's a 65-yard touchdown. It's 14-14 probably going into half or 13-13. And, we're right there rocking and rolling, and who knows what happens in the second half. That was a big, big drop by Tavion. Probably from that point on, that's what changed the game. Our defense was hanging on. It was 6-7 at the end of the first quarter, which is when Tennessee dominates people. They outscored their opponents something like 94-28 or something in the first quarter going into that game. So to be right there should have been tied minus the extra point at the end of the first quarter. We were right where we wanted to be. But going in the second quarter, we dropped the pass. A couple things don't go our way, and then that was kind of it the rest of the game. Let's see here. Again, I'm not blaming the officials for that loss. It was far from their fault, but just flat out not consistent. That pass interference call was terrible. There was a couple holding calls that were missed, and they were blatant. That didn't feel like it was even both ways, but again, that was not the outcome in the game. So I'm not going to be too upset. I do think the Tavion play was it really seemed from the time we missed that extra point, we started to kind of get shaky on offense, but definitely from the Tavion drop on, it seems like it was an all systems failure for the offense. As far as defense goes, I don't know how you let Jalen Hyatt get wide open twice. That's insane. Okay, I understand he's a really good receiver. He gets open once, they score fast. Okay, it's on the first drive. We got it now. We're here. We're ready to play. We got to keep an eye on that guy. I haven't went back and studied the film or nothing, but I don't know if they were lining up or motioning to get him on, maybe a linebacker or something during those plays. But from him to get open twice, that's insane. That should not happen against what at the time was a top 10 defense in college football. Our defense has played too good all year, and they are too good to let stupid stuff like that happen. It's just kind of, to me, it's one of those things you kind of chalk up to us, pissing down our leg when we play against Tennessee. It seems to happen every year, and to me, it's just another example of that. Overall, something that I think has plagued Mark Stoops his entire career here, and how we have not hired somebody to fix this problem, I don't know. But our clock management is terrible. At the end of halves and at the end of games, our clock management has cost us, I don't know how many points, if not games. Um, we have the ball under a minute left. The only things we cannot do there are turn the ball over and give them the ball back. Whether we score or not is irrelevant completely, but we can't let them get the ball back at all. And the play calling wasn't, again, a lot of this is going to go back to the play calling, but it was terrible. Letting Tennessee get the ball back and score right before half was the worst clock management I've seen out of Stoops, and he's had a lot of those blunders. So I don't know what we do to fix that. I don't know. I mean, to me, he's had enough of these issues now to it shouldn't be a problem. I don't know if he's just so wrapped up in the game and he's not thinking or what, but he needs to get a grad assistant or a coach or somebody that is their sole job, is to keep it on the clock and manage timeouts. Hey, we have this many timeouts and there's this much time on the clock. If we can run and get one first down, or if we can do this or we can do that, then we can run at the clock. Whether we score or not, who knows? But at least we'll be able to, get out of the half or out of the game and keep the ball and not give the other team a chance. But that's plagued him his whole career. And let's see, what do we got next? Let's get back into the play calling. Scangarello, he has some answering to do. He came out and kind of, he had coach speak after. He had his presser the other day where he kind of said stuff's got to get better. We got to fix this. We're trying, we're fighting hard. All of the normal coach speak, which is all good and fine and whatever. But Stoops had some pretty strong words in his press conference this week, also saying basically it's got to get fixed. It's got to get fixed now, or we're making changes. He didn't specifically threaten anybody's job, but he said there'll be changes made. We can't afford to keep, we have what I think is the best, if not top 3 receiving core in the whole SEC. Definitely the best, probably NFL quarterback. You can make the argument for Bryce Young, I guess. But we have what is at the very least a top 3 quarterback in college football, and to not let him try to win you games. It seems like our play calling a lot was to not lose instead of go win the game. And I think that is going to be an issue. I don't know if I put a poll out on Twitter that said, do we think it's Mark Stoops telling Scangarello to be more conservative, or is it Scangarello's philosophy and play calling that's causing that? I think it's a little bit of both. Personally, I think Stoops does tell Scangarello, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. He wants that to be the bread and butter, which it has been, and it has worked for Kentucky for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now. But we don't have the offensive line we've had for 5 or 6 years. So what do? You have the best, if top 2 at the worst, running backs in school history, and probably a top 2 to 3 quarterback in school history. So which one do you rely on? Obviously, the run game has struggled. It steadily got better. And now we're going into a game against an offense that can score in a hurry, so you want to keep them off the field. Defense isn't very good, so you should be able to throw over them. We had a little bit of success running on the drive that we scored. That led to Stoops kind of whispering in the ear of Scangarello, saying, let's pound this out. Let's make it muddy. Let's make it. And if we can hang around. But the problem when you choose that game plan is, of course, what happens when it doesn't work. If you're not willing to open it up over the top and you're not willing to take the top off of the defense, then I don't know. We had one completion over 6 yards down the field. Now we had some catch and runs out of the backfield, but the ball being completed 6 yards or more down the field, we had one. Even in a conservative offense, that's not very good. So the play calling, I definitely think wasn't there. And like I said, Stoops had some pretty strong words about that after the game. So we'll see. And there's also been a lot of chatter on Twitter and Facebook and some other outlets on if this is Stoops' ceiling. Is 8-4, possibly 9-3 with a bowl win kind of the highest level he'll ever get here at UK or anywhere? Is that kind of his coaching max as far as recruiting and playing and all that good stuff goes? Which, first off, let me start off by saying if that is, every Kentucky fan is in debt to Stoops. Even if that is the best he ever does here, if that is the absolute best he can coach, and we never win more than those games, every Kentucky fan is indebted to him for life. Um, before him, we had Joker Phillips, and we were 2-10 every year, and we were 1-1. In Stoops' early years, we hit bowl games, and we thought that it was just sunshine and rainbows, and nothing could be better. And now we're looking at 8-4 and thinking, "Wow, what a disappointment." So, in no way, shape, or form am I, upset with where Stoops has gotten this program and stuff. But a couple things. I hope it's not his ceiling. I hope it's not. I don't think it is. I wouldn't expect it. Especially because Stoops is the type of coach that if it's not working, he's shown he's willing to make changes. When he fired his best friend Eddie Grant as an offensive coordinator, that should have sent out the signal that he is willing to do what it takes to win. Him and Eddie are, personally really close. Obviously, close as coaches, but just personally they were close. So he's willing to do what it takes to move to the next level. So I don't think it's his ceiling. I hope it's not his ceiling. But time will tell. And if it is his ceiling, again, I'm not upset with the guy. If we're going 8-4 or 9-3 with hopes of maybe one year 10-2, or when we expand the college football playoffs, maybe a year we hop in there. Once the cards fall our way every now and then. So I'm not upset about it at all. But another, let's see. Stoops has never done well on the clock, though. I think he likes to have his defense make the game-winning play. That's true. That's probably true. But not being good on the clock, even if you do expect your defense to make the game-winning play, clock management's the blunders we've had in the past, few years with that are still, unexcusable. You still can't be doing that stuff. That's simple coaching 101 type thing. If we have the ball, don't, especially when we have that offense on the other side, definitely can't give it to them. So yeah, I mean, he definitely relies on his defense, and that's been the strength of every Stoops team, is for the most part it's the defense, and it's worked. But the clock management stuff, we shouldn't be having those issues still. Also, Rich is the problem, though you do bring up a good point. It's unclear if Stoops' philosophy to play slow and conservative. Yeah, back to that. I don't know if I think it's a little bit of both. I think Stoops definitely, I mean, he's came out and said before that he has pulled the reins back on, I think it was Cohen last year. He pulled the reins back on Cohen. I think it was even clear against South Carolina. I think Rich had some stuff schemed up that game. Obviously we tried the trick play the first play of the game and it backfired. And I think from that point on, Stoops said, we are pounding the ball and we're being conservative through the air, because that one thing went wrong there at the beginning. And I think that ultimately cost us the game. I think we still could have beat that team without Will. Now, obviously, if we have him in that game, we win for sure. But I think we beat him with Kaya too. But I know Stoops has been known to pull the reins back before. I don't know if that was the case here, but I also saw the argument that it could be Scangarello's offense is so advanced coming from the NFL that it takes a little time to get used to. It takes some, maybe a full year for guys to fully understand the play calling and the schemes and that kind of thing. But that's no excuse either. You know what you're coming to coach. You have to play call and plan and implement offense that works for the guys you have, not the guys you want. You have to, and that's case in point, Tennessee. They have built their offense around what their guys do well, not what Josh Heupel likes, although it might be, but it's about what they do. But again, I don't fully blame Stoops. I put most of it on Scangarello. I do think Stoops kind of pulls the reins on him sometimes, but even, at this point, we would have seen something. I feel like, and I had this thought today, we did better without Chris Rodriguez. Our offense looked more adept without Chris Rodriguez, and that's crazy to think because he's the best running back probably in the SEC, definitely top two ever at Kentucky, if not number one. So it's crazy to think that our offense would actually struggle with that. But without Chris, I think Stoops kind of let that offense flow and run a little more. And we saw it. Will was making big throws, and we were throwing the ball downfield, and we were trying to make those game changing plays. We saw it at Florida quite a bit when we didn't have Chris. Even in the Ole Miss game a little bit, we let him air it out because Chris was fresh, and I think they were trying to ease him into it. But in the game since, it seems like we've been so dedicated to making sure C-Rod gets his touches and yards, and he always does well. He doesn't go down behind the line of scrimmage hardly ever, and that's all great, but you still have to have a balanced attack. You can't, cut off your nose to spite your face. You gotta be willing to throw the ball downfield when you have Dane Key, Tavion Robinson, Barryon Brown. You got to be willing to throw the ball over the top a little bit then too. And ever since Chris has came back, I think we've been almost too dedicated to the run, and a lot of the times it's worked for Kentucky this year and in the past. Chris is amazing, and I don't know what he averages per game, but just in this game against the best defense in the SEC, he was averaging 4.3 yards a carry. So I mean, he's obviously the workhorse and the center of the offense. But when you also have a first round pick at quarterback, you got to let the guy go win games for you. You got to put your trust in him. I know the offensive line has been bad and he hasn't had much time. But when the cards are on the table and you're in your rival stadium and you're down, throw the ball downfield. I don't get why you wouldn't. You're not. It's not a game you're picked to win. At this point, the season's not really on the line, so go after it. What's worse than 44-6? I know you're not thinking that at the time, but you should be. Go for it. If you lose because they outplayed you, great. If you lose because your first round quarterback didn't make a throw, great. But don't go get shut out and have 5 passes ahead of the line of scrimmage. That's what you can't do. That's why it's so embarrassing because our offense, who should have been able to take advantage and score, I mean, they played UT Martin last week, and UT Martin's offense put up 24 points against them. So why can our offense not? Why can our offense only put up essentially 6 points or 7 if we kick the field goal? Why can our offense not do what even UT Martin's offense can? And our offense has shown sparks. But that's Tennessee again was the better team. They played like it. We came out scared. I don't know what Stoops' problem is coming out of bye weeks, but he has a losing record and not by a little bit after bye weeks. It seems like I don't know. I don't know if the time off just he lets everybody get too relaxed. He does. I can't imagine they're not fired up to come play Tennessee, the number 3 overall team in the country, in their stadium. I can't imagine a world where the team's not excited. But at this point, it's no longer a fluke that we come out flat after bye weeks. So whatever that issue is, we got to get that fixed, or we got to start scheduling Vandy after bye weeks. One of the two. We can't keep doing both. Now again, kind of going back to what I touched on earlier, my Twitter this week was insane. I had every person I think that lives in the state of Tennessee mentioning me this week. Like I said, I put out 2 statements. Number one, I didn't blame Will Levis. Again, you can't be mad at a guy for going to make plays. Let's hold on. If often after bye week is it top schools? I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, honestly, but I know that I think it's 5 and 8 or something like that after buys. That's not acceptable. It doesn't matter who you're playing. We're not playing top schools all the time. Actually, I'll tell you the answer here in just a second. Let's see. Find Kentucky's. Either way, though, like I said, after bye weeks, I mean, yeah, we played a top 3 school. This is one you expect to lose this one, and it just so happens it comes after a bye. But I mean, we're not playing Georgia every year after a bye week. We played Tennessee 2 or 3 times, I think, and we've been better than them at least twice. Coming off a bye that we should have won, and I think including last year. I know it's been Mississippi State a couple times, and most of the time it's when we're down there. But regardless of how you lose or if you lose, it just seems like we're always flat. Um, and that's the issue. If you come out and we lose to Tennessee this week, 38-42, then so be it. I'm not upset about that. But coming out flat and playing 44-6 against a defense that lets up 23 points a game to Northwestern Missouri College, or whoever, that's you can't have that. You can't come out that flat, especially with the high-powered offense we have. But anyway, back to the Twitter thing. Like I said, I put out two pretty uncontroversial statements. I thought the first one being that I didn't blame Will Levis, and I thought a lot of it was play calling, and you can't be upset at guys like Will, who is such a gamer, for going out and trying to make plays. I don't fault him at all for that. He forced throws that wasn't there. It resulted in a couple picks, but I'll take losing like that if as long as we're allowing Will to give us a chance. I trust in him enough to make the big plays when we need to, and not giving him a chance is just terrible. And then when you're backed up on every series and he throws a pick, so be it. You ask that when you only throw screens and run the ball two or three times up the gut. And then the other statement I put out that really Tennessee fans didn't seem to like was that I didn't think that Hendon Hooker did anything spectacularly well. Again, he's good in their system, but he doesn't have the arm strength or the accuracy to play at the next level. He's mobile, but not Lamar. So he's he's in a gray area. He falls in really well to their scheme, but I don't think many NFL scouts are going to look at him and say he does this really well, and we can coach the rest. He's mobile. He's almost mobile to a fault. Will Levis, for example, is a pocket passer who is mobile enough to make plays with his feet, but doesn't rely on that. As to where the Lamar Jackson version of that, when he played at Louisville, it didn't have the arm or maybe the accuracy, but he had the speed and the agility to get outside and make plays. And NFL scouts thought, well, I can teach the going through your progressions and making these throws. I can teach that, but I can't teach that speed. Hendon Hooker, on the other hand, doesn't have great arm strength. That's not something you can teach. That's you have it or you don't. The accuracy is, good, not great. They don't do a whole lot. Most of the time, he's thrown to wide open guys. And then his mobility, he's almost too fast to leave the pocket, but not fast enough to be a huge, huge threat. Any good defense is able to contain him. Kentucky did a fairly decent job containing him. Let's see, he ran for 23 yards on 10 carries. So I'm not upset about that at all. Again, I thought it was a pretty uncontroversial statement, but you would have thought that I went to each individual Tennessee fan's house and kicked their dog on Twitter. They have been blowing me up for 3 or 4 days now. And of course, logic is not their thing. It's not what they do best. But regardless, I wasn't even trying to be rude. I put out that Tennessee was the better team, and Kentucky deserved to lose that one. But they didn't want to see it that way. They wanted to tell me how no good, very bad Will Levis is, and how no good, very bad Kentucky is, and how we will never be anything but their little brother. And then one of them started talking about their. I'm sure you guys have seen it by now. Their basketball team went and held their SEC championship trophy up in front of the UK away fan section, and was taunting them and whatever, which is fine. You can do that, I guess. Maybe next year we'll bring out 33 of ours, and maybe a couple Final Four banners that you all don't know of, never seen. Maybe more than one Elite Eight banner would be cool. I'm sure you guys would like to see what multiple of those looks like. The 8 national championship banners, even the runner-up banners. Y'all still never been there. So the basketball taunting thing, I'm sure you guys have seen the meme. It's the guy getting the medal placed on his neck, and he's spraying champagne and flipping the bird to everybody, and then it kind of zooms out, and he's like in 9th place. That's Tennessee fans trying to talk, basketball, and they were telling me how washed we are in basketball and how we are irrelevant as a basketball program when they've never done anything worth talking about. You've won one NCAA tournament. So my week on Twitter has been interesting to say the least. Um, but we got a couple people in here. Put your thoughts in the chat over there. I'll talk about whatever. We will discuss whatever you guys want. I'll hear your complaints. If you're a Tennessee fan, you can tell me how the sun only rises in Tennessee and how Kentucky stays dark 24 hours a day now, and how you guys have ruined us as a program and all that good stuff, which I don't think is true. Tennessee fans act like Kentucky will never be relevant again and whatever. Um, Another thing I want to say real quick, actually, you can say a lot of things about Kentucky. We're crazy. Our fans are insane. We're rabid. We are probably, in my opinion, especially in basketball, by far the most diehard fan base. Um, but in football, at least we know who we are as a program. You don't see us pretending like we beat Florida a couple years ago, or when we beat Tennessee at Tennessee, that we were world beaters and we are here, and I'll be damned if anybody beats us ever again, and all of that good stuff. But Tennessee fans don't see it that way. This is their first successful season since '06, I believe, and I'm telling you right now, if you ask a Tennessee fan, they have now overtaken Bama's dynasty. Georgia is going to lose by 37 to them, and they have just created the toughest football team in the entire world, and no one has been or will ever be better. Let's see. How often after we'll see if Georgia makes Tennessee look like Oregon from week 1. Possibly. Obviously, Kentucky's defense was ranked 2 in the SEC, and uh, a lot of it, I think, was we didn't come ready to play, but they put 44 on us. Georgia's ranked number 1. So I guess we'll see the gap between Kentucky's defense and Georgia's defense. I think it'll be a close game. I really do. I think Tennessee's offense can score, and their defense really can't stop anybody, but apparently us. So I think it'll be close. I think Georgia wins. I think Georgia is just by far the best team. But I think it's close. I think Tennessee puts up a fight. They could win it. Who knows? But we'll see this weekend, I guess. I'm used to the UT nonsense talk. They've been drooling for decades to get this one good year, and Georgia can shut them up. They absolutely can. Actually, no, they can't. Here's the problem. Tennessee's so delusional. No, they can't. No, they won't. Tennessee could walk into Georgia and lose the game 97-3, and Tennessee will still talk about how they are going to go down in the playoffs and beat Georgia or whoever they play. There's just no shutting them idiots up. That's just a fact. They are and I've said this well before this week. I've said this for years. They're the most delusional fan base by far, and it's not close. They think they are God's gift to college basketball, and they have never once been relevant. And they think they're God's gift to college football, and they haven't been relevant since '98. At least not really. They've had good years since '98, but not since '06. This is their best one since '06, and like I said, they think they're God's gift to college football. And a couple weeks ago when they played Alabama, their game did crazy good numbers as far as TV ratings go, and every one of them thought it was for them. They thought no one gave a damn about Alabama, and everybody tuned into that game to watch Tennessee. And at that point, there was a little bit of talk about Tennessee going on nationally, but obviously it's a lot more now. But at the time, it was kind of like, we're just going to see if Alabama, can pull this one off. But Tennessee fans thought that they were the sole reason anybody ever tunes into college football, and they are just flat out delusional. So while I do hope Georgia wins, I don't think it'll shut Tennessee up whatsoever. I think it would. I mean, hell, they talk for 15 years or almost 20 years now about how good they are, and they wasn't good until this year. So if 17 years of being trash doesn't shut you up, I guess nothing will. But alas, that's Tennessee for you. And another thing, and I've made this joke a bunch on this channel, made it a ton. The Tennessee is the worst fans, and they're the trashiest, and they're the this and they're that, and they throw ketchup bottles and mustard bottles and golf balls. And all of that is true, by the way. All of that is true. And until this week, I've never really had an overwhelming reaction to Tennessee fans, or interaction even, really. I get it on this channel a decent amount, but nothing crazy. Mainly because I guess I'm the only one that you can see on this channel. You don't see, pictures of my dog and my fiance and people like that. Um, but on Twitter, you do. So when I got blown up this week, of course, in all honesty, I mean, I got called a lot of things, which is fine. But one thing I've never experienced with any other fan base is if I'm interacting with a person from another fan base is the personal attacks, talking, screenshotting pictures of my fiance and stuff like that. So I thought that was dirty. I don't ever attack people's family. I think that's low and below even Tennessee fans. But clearly they don't think so. So they like to make those jokes. Those people that made those jokes got blocked pretty quick, and I'm not one to block people. I'll go back and forth with just about anybody, and I'll argue until I'm blue in the face. And even if I'm wrong, I'll argue my point. But that stuff I thought was just pretty low for Tennessee fans. Even I would like to think people are better than that, but I think everybody, or not everybody, but most people are better than that. Just not anyone that wears the color orange, I guess. Any other questions? Y'all throw some in here. I'm probably gonna call her a night here. We've been going almost 40. We'll make it to 45 minutes, so we got some time. Yeah, I did. Thank you. It's been almost a year now since I got engaged, so we're still, the wedding's not till next year, so I still got a little bit of time, to finish planning that. But yeah, what can you expect? Yeah, I figured it would come at some point. Like I said, that was the first time I've really, I mean, my channel blew up, my Twitter blew up, and had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Like I said, if you can look up your Twitter analytics and my channel, or my not my channel, my Twitter views, my profile views and stuff were up like 1,300% or something. And I had over 300 mentions in 2 days, and it's just nonstop. It's kind of calmed down now, but you know, Tennessee fans for you, they'll take things farther than it needs to, but that's okay. I'm not losing any sleep over it. But let's hear your all's opinions. What did y'all think about the game? What was it? Play calling for you? Was it the defense? Was it Tennessee just dog walked us, and that's all we can do about it? I really expected Tennessee fans on here. I had a lot of them in my comments this week telling me that they're going to be here and they're going to let me know exactly what they think about me and Kentucky. And not a single one of them showed up. So oddly enough, this is going surprisingly well. And I didn't think I could talk for 45 straight minutes, but I've done a pretty good job, even if it was all nonsense. And Tennessee fans will tell me I'm wrong. But anyway, I guess we can look forward a little bit, and we haven't even touched basketball. Jesus Christ. Looking forward a little bit. Like I said, we got to beat Mizzou. That's step number one. Then you got Vandy at home. Should be 2 wins. That'll put us back at 7-3. Then you got Georgia at home. You pull off a miracle. That's awesome. Obviously, nobody's going to pick us for it, but that's okay. I don't pick us for it, but I will be at the game, and I might have field passes to be down there for the pregame stuff. So, I'll go down there and I'll give them the old pregame speech for everybody. Talk to Will Levis. I don't know what I got to do for tell Scangarello not to throw 100 screens a game, but I'll do what I can. If I do get the field passes and stuff, by the way, I got a buddy who has some connections, and he's possibly going to get us down on the field. If we can do that, I will. I'll do a vlog for that one because I think that'd be pretty neat. See, I expected a loss, but the offense was pathetic. Yes, it was. It's been a struggle all year. Screen, run. I'm not a fan of Rich. That seems to be the consensus. Everybody I've kind of talked to feels the same way. Coming in, Rich Scangarello was he was known in the league as an offensive guru, or at least a quarterback guru. And even Will Levis came out and said that he's learned a lot. He became a better quarterback under him, which is all good and well. But being a good quarterback coach doesn't mean you're a good OC. It doesn't mean you're good at calling plays. So we will see about that. I, too, am not a fan of run, screen, or screen, run, or any combination of that. I know we have crazy good receivers. I know Tavion is, Wandale Robinson light. We have Dane Key, but he's more of an over-the-top guy. But Barryon, we've seen his explosiveness. But we're just not getting the blocking out there, and it's too predictable. There was also a story that came out that said as soon as we would get in formation on offense, Tennessee's defense would start calling out the exact play we were running. So if our offense is as complex as people like to pretend it is with this NFL scheme, they shouldn't be able to call out our plays from a formation. So maybe the O-line is oh, well, that's probably true too. The O-line, didn't give Will a ton of time, but honestly, even when he was given time, he threw some bad balls. You obviously had the one to Dane that should have been caught down the sideline, and then you had Tavion on the back shoulder that if he holds on to that, it's a 65 yarder. That one throw alone gets Will to like 155 yards for the game. So sometimes this game, you can see stuff on paper and it looks so bad, but you just got to know, you're this catch away from being where you want to be, or you're this penalty in the Ole Miss game case. So yeah, the offense, but there's a lot not to like, but the offensive line has clearly been the biggest issue this year. We have too many weapons and too many good running backs and too good of a quarterback to have the struggles that we have. While I do attribute a lot of that to play calling, maybe it's Rich trying to cover up some of the offensive line struggles because Will hasn't had sufficient time all year. And but again, this is probably Will's worst game since he's gotten to Kentucky. This is probably by far his worst game. Even the throws where he had time wasn't overly great. Which let's see. Yeah, Rich was a QB coach, which you would think would improve the position. However, the assistant line coach struggled. Yeah, Zach Yinzer, Kentucky dude. Well, he kind of came with Rich from the 49ers. I don't know. I think a lot of it. I think the offensive line will be fine in the future. We just have a lot of young guys. Jagger Burton, he's like a redshirt freshman. Tavion, or is it whatever the big guy, the right tackle's name, or right guard, whichever one. Tayshawn Manning, that's who it is. They're all young guys. We got a lot of young guys on the line this year. That guy that they started at left tackle, David Walla, something other. He obviously got benched, but he was young. So I think a lot of it's just being young right now. It's hard for freshmen to come into the SEC, especially on the offensive line, and take on first round draft picks every week. It's tough. It's going to take time. I think a lot of it could be, not having Schlarman. Schlarman was obviously probably the best O-line coach this college has seen. But obviously what happened, he, passed unfortunately, and now you got to do what you got to do. So you can't make excuses, whether it be coaching or whatever. I do think it gets better going forward. I don't know enough about Zach Yinzer as a coach to make an informed opinion on that one. Could be him, or it could just be that we're really young and kind of got to get just bigger and stronger overall on the line. But y'all keep bringing in the questions and stuff. We're past the 45 minutes, I said, so we'll try to go to an hour. But we can move into some basketball stuff too if you guys want. I was at the exhibition game the other night against, Missouri, whoever. I was about 12 rows behind the bench. Damian Collins, first, obviously he had that tragedy this morning of his father passing. So, thoughts and prayers out to him about that. But he was a little underwhelming in the exhibition after what we have seen in the Bahamas. And then Cal comes out, of course, and puts out his statement saying, let's temper expectations. We're not where we need to be yet. The normal stuff we kind of hear every year from Cal before the season starts. That way, we go and we lose a game. The sky's not falling, even though Kentucky fans don't see it that way. Unfortunately, every game we lose is like we lost the championship game, even if it means nothing. But in the exhibition game, the defense, first off, I think our defense in basketball is going to be really, really good. This was the lowest amount of points we have let an opponent score in an exhibition game since 2012. And we know what happened that season. We held them to 38 points. The 2012 team held an exhibition game to 28. So we're right there where we need to be. And it seems defensively, Cason Wallace is going to be a problem on defense for other teams. He has really good hands. He's fast, and he's going to be a lockdown defender. We'll probably we will put Cason on their best guard, and we'll put Toppin on their best big. That's just what it'll be. Unless they're, a true big, then obviously Oscar's going to be guarding him. But we should be a menace to teams defensively. It's going to be hard for teams to play on us, especially if Collins comes around. And then we saw Ugana, whatever his name is. He had like 4 blocks in 4 minutes. It was the most insane thing I've seen. I was sitting, like I said, about 12 rows up from the bench, down on that end, right next to the goal. and he was sending shots out of bounds left and right. I still think he's got a lot of growing to do as far as his offensive game, so I don't know that he'll get to play quite a bit. That's funny. I just answered that question. I don't expect him to play a ton. He'll play in these exhibition games and against some of the bad teams to get him minutes and stuff. But you got to look who's ahead of the guy. Oscar is the returning National Player of the Year. You'd be hard pressed to find any coach that's going to take his minutes and give them to an unproven freshman. And then even ahead of him, really, you got Damian Collins, who's just as long and just as athletic. But defensively, I think this team's going to be really, really good. Offensively, we scored 56 against whoever Missouri. That's a little concerning. I'm not going to read too much into the offensive performance there because we've seen what they can be. Antonio Reeves, his shot just wasn't falling. CJ Frederick, his was. You get a night where both of those dudes are shooting the ball like that. Case and Wallace hit a couple deep threes. I mean, there's not a team in the country that's going to run with that. You have the National Player of the Year down low, 50-something% three-point shooter in CJ Frederick, and a 40-something% in Antonio Reeves, along with what Reeves can do off the dribble. Y'all might as well forget about it. We're gonna run this. We're gonna run the other team out of the gym, and we're too deep. And like I said, Collins might just had a bad night that night. He'll come around. Severe, all SEC point guard. I think this team is just as poised as any to make a run. Actually, that's going to be my next video. I don't want to, get too far into it on this one just because that is going to be my next one talking about the basketball team and stuff. But I think this team's going to be really good. Let's see. I mean, if the team struggles without Oscar, that's not a pretty sight, though I'm confident in Kingsley feeling in the role of a great center when Oscar leaves. Yeah, for sure. If Oscar doesn't return for a third year, I think he'll grow into it. We've heard about Damian Collins' growth, and we saw it in the Bahamas. I think he can be that same guy. I think he's actually going to be a better rim protector than Oscar. Oscar's great, and he's tough, and he's physical, but he's not the most athletic dude in the world. He doesn't have a super crazy reach. He doesn't jump super high, but he's just really efficient with what he does. Collins and Uganda, they're athletes. They're going to get up, and they're going to block shots. If we ever got into a game this year where Oscar, because we know Oscar struggles with 7-footers, guys that are significantly taller than him. I think we can put a lineup together this year that can combat that. So I think we'll be okay. I don't expect, like I said, to see Yinso, I think is his last name. I don't expect to see him on the floor much in meaningful minutes, but I think he'll be okay. Yeah. I mean, it definitely helps having him when guys are in foul trouble. I mean, obviously, you get Oscar in foul trouble, you can still put Collins in there. But if he's not having a good night, then you still have Uganda. So it's great to have depth there. I think guards were fine in depth too. Knock on wood, assuming the injury thing doesn't happen to us again this year. It's already hurt a little bit. Severe obviously went out and twisted his knee. Like I said, I was sitting right there when it happened. It happened on the sideline closest to me there. It didn't look bad when it happened. I didn't get a chance to see it in slow-mo, though, so it could have been really bad. But he laid there for a minute, and when he finally got back up to his feet, he had a hard time putting weight on it. But we've all had those types of injuries where, you feel like you broke it, and then 10 minutes later, you're walking around and you're fine. Apparently, it was a knee that he had previously tweaked. And I actually heard Cal ask him if it's that same knee, and he nodded, yeah, or said yeah, or whatever. So it makes me feel better that it's not a different injury or a new injury. They don't expect him to be out, so I think he'll be okay. He might not play, tomorrow, and he may sit out the Howard and Duquesne. I think by the time Michigan State rolls around, we'll be pretty full strength. I saw Oscar at the game. Obviously, he wasn't on crutches. I mean, he wasn't out there trying to dunk or windmill or nothing, but he was up walking around, didn't seem, hindered or limping or anything like that. So I feel good that, hopefully by the Champions Classic, almost surely by the Gonzaga game, we'll be full strength, ready to go. I'd feel better about the Michigan State game if we have everybody. I don't think Michigan State's very good this year, and I think we have a chance to be really good. I know Cal did just come out and say, we're not there yet, and we need to slow down and let me coach these guys, and we'll be ready in January and February, which is all great and stuff we hear, and I hope we are because I'd much rather be good then than in the beginning. but we're the oldest team in the SEC. We have more experience than any other team in the SEC. There's no reason for us to come out slow this year. We should come out firing and ready to go. Uh, I mean, we have plenty of experience. We have the returning National Player of the Year. These freshmen look good, and we should be ready to rock and roll. Um, CJ Frederick has played in big games. Antonio Reese hasn't played in massive games, but he's played, 4 years of college ball now. Severe's played in big games. Collins was on the team last year. All the other guys I can't think of right now. We should be ready to go. I don't see any reason we start off slow. As long as we find our footing in offense. Of course, not having Oscar there, that probably accounts for a lot. They've trained all this time and practiced with him there. And now that he's not there, it's going to take some time to get into a new flow for our offense there. But I think when he comes back, it might take a couple games to get flowing again. But when you have the National Player of the Year getting 20 and 20 down low, that can affect it when you're not there. But we'll see with K-State. I think there's a good chance we come out against Kentucky State tomorrow and we put up 80, 90 points. I think this is a team that can do it. Like I said, CJ Frederick shot the ball well the other night, but Antonio Reeves did not. Also, I think a lot of it was Cal playing with rotations and different lineups. This was the first time since 2015 we've seen him kind of platoon subs. It was almost every single platoon he was subbing 4, if not all 5 guys out at a time. So I think he was playing with matchups and he was playing with rotations and who plays well with who. What kind of offense are we generating out of these sets? Personally, I would love to see a lineup of Severe, Kaysen, probably CJ, Toppin, and then Oscar. I think that would be really, really good. It looks like Toppin's game has came a long way too. He's hit a ton of those turnaround J's on the shot clock, and they fell. So that's great. If Oscar creates like a 15-footer, maybe even a three-pointer here and there, this team's going to be unguardable. And even if you don't go with that lineup, you can move Kaysen to the point, put Reeves at your 2, Frederick, Toppin, or Collins, and then Oscar. And again, last year and the past couple years, really, the gap in athleticism and talent between us and the people we're playing, while we were better, we wasn't substantially better. We couldn't just flat out athlete people like we had in the past. I think this is a team you can put lineups that can just flat out athlete St. Peter's. I don't think we could do that last year. While we had a lot of good players, Kellen Grady wasn't the best athlete in the world. Damian Mintz was not the best athlete in the world. Some of those guys, some of them had a lot to grow into, and some of them just wasn't great athletes. They were good and they were really effective for us at times, but they wasn't guys that would just go get theirs whenever they wanted. So I think we have guys that can do that this year. I think Kaysen's good. I think Toppin has came a long way. Obviously, Oscar. And then adding CJ Frederick back into it and Antonio Reeves. All we have to do is have one guy that's consistently shooting that night and then have Oscar down low, and I think we'll be fine. But unless there's any more comments or questions, guys, we've been going for almost an hour. Yes, Antonio Reeves, man, I'm telling you, every time he's been on the floor, he's been good except for the other night. I think he'll come out tomorrow and have a big game. I think he'll be good. And like I said, I'm trying not to get too deep into the basketball stuff. I'm going to save that for my next video next week. So stay tuned to that. If you're watching this, first off, or if you watched any part of this, thank you. I do appreciate you guys, and I appreciate all the comments. It made for some good conversation. I've talked for an hour straight, which is maybe a new record for me, although my fiance may say otherwise. But make sure you like it. Even if you're watching this later on, make sure you like it. Leave a comment down in the comment section. I'm sure some Tennessee fans will catch up to this whenever they're off their drunken bender from beating, Kentucky. They'll get to it, and I'll hear from them. But subscribe, like, leave a comment, share the video, all that good stuff. But until next week, I will see you guys then. Go Cats, and I appreciate you guys. Thanks for the first live stream. It was awesome. I've really enjoyed it, and I'd like to do a lot more of these. So just stay tuned for that. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you guys next week.